I've sat across from hundreds of men in my clinic, men in their 60s, 70s, sometimes well into their 80s, and there's one quiet phrase I hear more than any other. They say, "Doc, I just don't feel like myself anymore." And they usually follow it up with something like, "I guess that's just age, right?" There's often a pause after that, sometimes a shrug, sometimes shame. Let me tell you something that needs to be said plainly. You're not lazy, and you're not weak. If your energy is low, if your motivation has dipped, if the fire you use to feel in your chest has cooled, it doesn't mean you failed. It might mean your body is missing something, quietly, systematically, slowly enough that you didn't notice it happening, until one day you did. We live in a world that loves to blame age for everything. But aging doesn't mean you're supposed to feel like a worn-out version of who you once were. The truth is, many men past 60 aren't actually slowing down because of age itself. They're slowing down because their bodies are no longer getting to or using the nutrients that once came naturally. And this isn't just about food. It's about what happens inside, how the body shifts without asking for permission, and how you can begin, right now, to gently turn that around. Let me tell you about Bill. Bill was 67 when he first walked into my office. Former electrician, sturdy frame, sharp tongue, but a hollow look in his eyes. He said he felt like he'd been fading for about a decade. Energy gone, sleep scattered, muscles softer, and something else too. He'd lost interest in things he used to love. Riding his bike, mornings with his wife, even talking to his kids on the phone. "I just feel off," he said. "Like I'm here, but I'm not." His wife had nudged him to come in. She'd seen the change before he did. She told me, with tears in her eyes, "It's like his spark's gone out." Bill wasn't sick in any obvious way. His blood pressure was fine, his cholesterol manageable, his weight steady. But his labs, those told a different story. He was low in 3 key nutrients, not dangerously low, just low enough to steal his energy, disrupt his sleep, muffle his motivation, and whisper doubt into his sense of vitality. When we addressed those deficiencies, something remarkable happened. Not overnight, not like some miracle cure, but steadily, like a man waking from a long nap. The color came back in his cheeks. His voice had more weight to it. He started joking again. Even his wife said, "He's standing taller." And here's the part that matters. Bill didn't change who he was. He just started giving his body what it had stopped asking for out loud. The truth is, after 60, the human body goes through a quiet turning point. Most men don't talk about it. And why would they? No one warns you that the rules start to change. Foods you used to thrive on don't seem to energize you the same way. You sleep, but don't feel rested. Your workouts leave you drained instead of recharged. You find yourself pushing through a fog you can't quite name. That's not just aging. That's your body's absorption machinery slowing down. The digestive system doesn't extract vitamins and minerals as efficiently. Medications you've been on for years, things like blood pressure pills, statins, or antacids, can interfere with how nutrients are stored and used. Even stress, the kind that builds quietly over years, can chip away at the reserves your body depends on. Picture your body like an old farmhouse, still strong, still standing, still full of character. But maybe the plumbing's slower now. The lights flicker when you turn on the microwave. The warmth takes longer to spread through the rooms. The foundation is solid, but it needs tending. It needs care. And above all, it needs fuel. The first place I look in cases like Bill's, and maybe yours, is vitamin D. Now, don't let the word vitamin fool you. Vitamin D is technically a hormone. And in the male body, especially as we age, it plays a role that's far more powerful than most people realize. It helps regulate energy production, supports testosterone synthesis, influences mood, boosts immune function, and even helps with blood flow. Without enough of it, you start to feel like a dimmed-down version of yourself. What makes vitamin D tricky is that it doesn't always scream when it's missing. It whispers. You feel a little more tired. You ache a little more. You start avoiding morning walks. You get sick more often or take longer to bounce back. And maybe, without realizing it, you start saying no to things that used to bring you joy. Here's the hard truth. Most older men are deficient in vitamin D. Not because they're doing anything wrong, but because sunlight, The primary source of D for the human body becomes harder to absorb through aging skin. And with more time spent indoors, especially after retirement, levels can fall to a point where they begin to rob you of your vitality. In clinical terms, we often recommend men check their serum 25-hydroxyvitamin D levels. If they're below 30 nanograms per milliliter, that's considered insufficient. Below 20, deficiency. But even men sitting around 35 or 40, still in the normal range, can benefit from modest supplementation, especially in winter months. I often suggest starting with 2,000 to 5,000 IU daily, under a doctor's guidance. That's not a magic number. It's a place to begin. What matters more is consistency, and pairing it with food sources when possible. Wild salmon, egg yolks, fortified dairy. Think of vitamin D as the conductor of your internal orchestra. When it's out of tune, the whole system plays off-key. But D isn't the only player in this story. Let's talk about B12. Now, this one hits close to home because it's often mistaken for other things. I had a patient, Jim, 72, who came to me worried he was developing early dementia. His memory was slipping. He was mixing up names, forgetting appointments, even stumbling over his words. But when I ran his labs, something else showed up. His B12 was down. Way down. B12 is essential for the brain and nervous system. It helps make red blood cells, supports nerve function, and plays a direct role in energy production. Without it, you can feel foggy, tired, numb in your fingers or toes, even off balance when walking. Here's the problem. After 60, your stomach produces less acid, and stomach acid is required to release B12 from food. Add in common medications like proton pump inhibitors or metformin, and your absorption rate can drop even further. You might be eating plenty of meat or eggs, but your body isn't getting the benefit. That's why I often recommend B12 in sublingual form, the kind that dissolves under your tongue, or even in periodic injections if levels are especially low. The form matters too. Methylcobalamin is often better absorbed than cyanocobalamin, especially in older adults. Within 2 weeks of supplementing, Jim's memory improved. Not completely. The brain takes time to heal, but he started remembering names again. He stopped feeling like he was slipping away. His wife said she caught him singing to himself in the kitchen, something he hadn't done in months. These aren't rare stories. They're just rarely told. What I want you to hear is this. If you've been struggling with low energy, scattered focus, or a sense of heaviness in your body, it may not be psychological. It may be biochemical. And the most powerful thing you can do right now is get curious. Not critical. Curious. There's no shame in needing fuel. No shame in needing a tune-up. Every man's body is a vessel that needs tending. Not because it's failing, but because it's been carrying you for decades. Through work, stress, heartbreak, success, loss, triumph, and change. That body of yours has been loyal. It deserves support. And there's one more core nutrient I want to tell you about, but we'll get to that in a moment. Because before we go there, I want you to pause for a second. Let the story settle. Maybe one of them felt familiar. Maybe you're wondering, what are my levels like? Or could it really be that simple? Let me tell you, it often is. Not always, but often. Sometimes it's not about overhauling your life. It's about quietly restoring what's been lost, about feeding the body that's been running on low for too long. And that, my friend, is where we'll pick up next. Because the third vitamin, the one that soothes the body's stress, calms the heart, and helps you rest, is one most men have never been told about. Yet it could change the way you sleep, think, and even love. Let's talk about that next. It's called magnesium. And if you've never thought about it before, you're not alone. Most men haven't. Yet this quiet mineral is behind some of the most common issues I see in men over 60, and the results of a deficiency can mimic everything from anxiety to insomnia to high blood pressure. Magnesium is often referred to as the relaxation mineral, but that word, relaxation, doesn't quite capture its depth. This isn't about lighting candles and taking bubble baths. It's about allowing your nervous system to finally take its foot off the gas. You see, magnesium plays a central role in hundreds of enzymatic reactions in the body. It calms muscle tension, regulates heart rhythm, supports blood vessel flexibility, and helps quiet an overactive mind. I once had a patient, Leonard, 74 years old, former school principal, the kind of man who always wore a collared shirt even on weekends. He came to me with restless sleep, headaches, and muscle cramps in his calves that would wake him up in the middle of the night. He looked exhausted. His hands shook slightly as he described how he'd lie awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, heart thudding, mind racing. He thought it was just aging, maybe stress, maybe something worse. We tested his magnesium levels, and sure enough, he was low. Not dangerously low, but insufficient. Like many men his age, he wasn't eating magnesium-rich foods regularly. Processed foods had crept into his diet. Stress had burned through his reserves, and he was taking a diuretic for his blood pressure, a medication known to deplete magnesium slowly over time. I started him on magnesium glycinate, a gentle, well-absorbed form, just 300 milligrams before bed. Within a week, his cramps had eased. By week 3, he was sleeping through the night. Not every night, but more than he had in years. And when I saw him a month later, he said something I'll never forget. "Doc, I feel like my body is exhaling again." That's the power of a single, often overlooked nutrient. I remember a man named Harold, 69 years old, a retired firefighter. Big hands, quiet eyes, the kind of guy who could carry someone out of a burning building without saying a word. When he first came to see me, he said, "Doc, I'm not in pain, but I feel hollow, like there's a gear missing." He wasn't depressed. He still went fishing on Saturdays, still helped his daughter with house repairs. But the joy, the urgency of living had thinned. He described it like watching life through a fogged-up window, close enough to touch, but somehow distant. What we found wasn't dramatic. His blood pressure was stable. His heart was strong, but his magnesium was low. So was his B12. And his testosterone, while technically in range, was hovering just above the bottom line. He looked at me and said, "So, I'm not imagining this?" And I told him, no, he wasn't. His experience had biology beneath it. You see, these nutrients don't work in isolation. Magnesium isn't just about muscles. It helps regulate the stress response by modulating the HPA axis, the system that governs how your body handles tension, both physical and emotional. Low magnesium levels can heighten cortisol release, increase sensitivity to noise, and even make it harder to settle into sleep. In men especially, chronic magnesium depletion can gradually blunt the body's ability to wind down, which means more strain on the heart, more restlessness at night, and more mental weariness during the day. And when B12 is also low, the brain starts to lose clarity, not dramatically, just slowly enough that you start misplacing your keys, forgetting names, losing track of conversations halfway through. The danger is, this mental dullness often gets written off as normal aging. But I've seen it reversed, not always fully, but significantly, when these deficiencies are caught early. Harold began a steady protocol. Magnesium glycinate at bedtime, B12 lozenges under the tongue each morning, and a small dose of DHEA, carefully monitored. Nothing drastic, no hormone cocktails, just foundational support. And what happened over the next few months was not a transformation, but a return. He started laughing more. He brought me smoked trout from his fishing trips, and in one of our last visits, he said, "It's not that I have more energy, it's that I want to use it again." That sentence stayed with me. Because so often, vitality isn't just about having power in the tank. It's about having a reason to turn the key. And when your biology aligns, when the engine runs clean and the fog lifts, that desire to participate in life returns. Not forced, not faked, just natural. You might be wondering, can something this small really make that much of a difference? The answer is yes, but not in isolation. This isn't about picking one supplement off a shelf and hoping for a miracle. It's about understanding how these key nutrients, vitamin D, B12, and magnesium, work together like legs of a three-legged stool. Take away one, and the whole system wobbles. What's more, it's not just about adding supplements. It's about tuning into your body with a kind of kindness most men were never taught to give themselves. It's about listening, adjusting, supporting, not forcing. That's what health looks like at this stage in life. Not punishment, not guilt, not pushing harder, support. Now, I want to talk about something that tends to get left out of these conversations. Food. Because while supplements can help fill the gap, they're not meant to replace what nature gives us. Real food still matters, and often it's where healing begins. If you want more vitamin D, look to wild-caught salmon, sardines, fortified eggs. Even a 15-minute morning walk in short sleeves can help, especially if your skin sees the sun. Just don't expect diet alone to bring your levels back up if they're already depleted. That's where targeted supplements come in. For B12, you're looking at foods like beef liver, not everyone's favorite, but also eggs, shellfish, and high-quality red meats. If you're vegetarian or taking medications that interfere with absorption, supplementation becomes even more important. Magnesium is abundant in dark leafy greens like spinach and Swiss chard, in nuts like almonds and cashews, in seeds like pumpkin and sunflower. A handful of pumpkin seeds after dinner. A bowl of sautéed greens with garlic. These are small acts of nourishment that quietly rebuild your reserves. And remember this, magnesium is a mineral of rhythm. It helps your heart beat steadily, your muscles fire smoothly, your sleep unfold without interruption. It brings things back into balance, one breath at a time. So, where do you begin? I often tell men, start small. Don't try to reinvent your entire lifestyle overnight. Pick one thing. Just one. Maybe it's asking your doctor for a basic blood panel that includes vitamin D and B12. Maybe it's adding a magnesium-rich food to your dinner. Maybe it's buying a quality supplement and sticking with it for a month. The changes won't be dramatic at first. They'll be subtle. A little more energy in the morning, a little less brain fog after lunch, a sense that your body is working with you again instead of against you. Those are the signs we look for. Those are the whispers of renewal. Because the truth is, most men don't need to be rescued. They need to be reminded. Reminded that strength doesn't vanish, it dims. That desire doesn't disappear, it hides. That vitality isn't a thing of youth. It's a product of nourishment, attention, and care. And when you give your body the raw materials it's been quietly starving for, it responds. It always responds. There's a myth out there that aging is just a long, slow decline, that after 60, the best you can do is hold on and hope for the best. But I've watched too many men come back to life to believe that anymore. I've seen shoulders straighten, eyes brighten, laughter return, not because of miracle drugs, but because of steady, thoughtful replenishment. You are not broken, you are not beyond repair, and you are not alone in how you feel. Maybe you've been carrying the weight of fatigue for so long, it started to feel like part of your personality. Maybe you've stopped talking about the dips in your energy, the nights you lie awake, the mornings you wake up already tired. Maybe you've even begun to question whether that fire, the one that used to drive you, is gone for good. But I want to offer a different possibility. What if that fire is still there, just buried under years of quiet depletion? What if your body has simply been asking for help in the only way it knows how? Through symptoms, through fatigue, forgetfulness, low libido, scattered sleep, tight muscles, or a restless heart? And what if with a few intentional steps, tested, thoughtful, no gimmicks, you could begin to uncover what's been waiting to return? This isn't about going back to who you were at 30, it's about fully inhabiting who you are now, with strength, clarity, and a kind of energy that feels grounded, not manic, steady, not strained. The men who thrive in their 60s and 70s aren't the ones who chase youth. They're the ones who respect their bodies enough to give it what it needs, not just once, but consistently. They listen, they adapt, and they nourish themselves with the same dedication they once gave to their work, their families, their responsibilities. You can do that too. You deserve to feel vital, to feel connected, to feel capable, not just physically, but emotionally. You deserve to wake up and feel like yourself again. So here's what I'd invite you to do. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not after the next commercial. Right now. Choose one thing from what you've heard today. Just one. Maybe it's booking a checkup. Maybe it's walking outside for 10 minutes. Maybe it's going to your kitchen and tossing one processed snack and replacing it with a handful of almonds or a hard-boiled egg. Maybe it's asking yourself, gently, what might my body be missing? And then, keep listening. Because the body always speaks. Not in dramatic announcements, but in quiet messages. Tension in your shoulders. That little sigh before you stand up. The afternoon slump. The way you start forgetting why you walked into the room. These are not signs of weakness. They are signals. And signals can be honored. I'm Dr. Michael Hanks. I've spent a lifetime walking beside men who thought they were simply getting old, when in truth, they were running on fumes. You don't have to do that anymore. You don't need to chase youth. You need to feed strength. Feed it with knowledge, with intention, with nutrients your body has been waiting for, patiently, faithfully, sometimes for years. You're not done. You're just beginning again, with better tools and deeper wisdom. You've got more life in you,